In today's distracted world, your ability to focus and learn quickly is a superpower. Let me explain that everything today is changing. Before, when you went to college or parents went to college, and all you had to do was learn what they taught you in school, and then you went to the job, and then you had to learn what they taught you in the job, and then you just do that for the next 40 years. That's not what's happening today. Once you graduate college, or once you turn 20, or once you turn 25, your learning is actually just starting. If you want to truly make money, you have to learn so many different skills. And what we're talking about, learning freedom sources of income, you have to learn marketing, you have to learn sales, business leadership, right? You have to understand how credit works, you have to understand funding, banks. There's so many different things that you have to learn. And being able to learn those things quickly is what we're going to be talking about today. That's what we're going to talk about. So let me just start with this statistic, which is going to blow your mind. 70%. 70% is what your brain forgets remembering in just 3 days. 70% of whatever you learned, in just 3 days, it's gone. What does that mean? It means that our brain is not the best at remembering anything. Just imagine if you were taking a plane and 70% of the time it didn't make it to where it was going. You'd probably not take the plane. In the same way, you probably shouldn't trust your brain for memory if it's forgetting everything 70% of the time in just 3 days. And we know this from maybe 50 years ago. Psychologist Hermann Ebbinghaus, he was a German philosopher, and much of what we know about memory today is based on his research. This is the harsh reality of the brain. It's not the best at memory. However, it is the fastest computer in the world. No computer works as fast, and in terms of creativity, the human brain is bar none, which means that if we are going to use the brain for what it's best at, then we have to understand what it is best at, and that's not memory, but creativity, thinking, problem solving. So then we have to reserve our brain to do that. So then we're going to talk about 3 things that highly productive people do. That's HPP, highly productive people do to overcome that memory lapse. So here's how we go about it. The first thing that highly productive people do is that when reading, highly productive people take notes on important tasks. That's the first thing that we have here. So in terms of reading, you already know that I read over 50 books a year. I read a book a week. I've been doing it for almost 10 years now. It's a brilliant practice. I recommend everybody do it. I read everything from business, economics, biographies. Sometimes I read a few fiction books as well. But it has transformed my life. But when reading, it is important to take notes. Why? Because our brains forget. Why do we take notes? There are a couple of reasons. You write down points that you remember, quotes, ideas, etc. Why? Because when you write these things down, instead of reading the book again in 5 days, in 2 weeks, because you want to commit it to long-term memory, in 3 months, instead of reading the entire book again, what you will go and do is look at the points that you wrote down, and that will jog your memory about what it is that you wanted to remember, what was important to you. That saves you time, not only now, but in 3 months when you don't need to read the entire book again, but then you can look at the notes that you have. So you're actually saving time and learning and compounding knowledge faster. So you maximize the time that it takes you to get information. Here's another thing. Taking notes, writing everything down. Highly productive people write a lot. So for to-do lists, right? Calendar events, write everything down electronically, on paper, whatever is comfortable for you. I'll tell you what I do. I use my phone. It's somewhere in the room, but I use my phone, right? So I have my calendar, and before, let's say on a Sunday evening, I'm recording this on a Saturday morning, right? So on a Sunday evening, what I'll do is that I will write down maybe 5 or 6 or 7 things that I want to get done tomorrow, and I will put it in a calendar notification so that it comes up at 9 o'clock the next morning or 8 o'clock the next morning. And then when that comes up on my phone, the 5, 10, 3 things that I want to get done that are very important for me, I can see and I can get started on my day because it's an alert that comes up first thing on my phone. So the first thing is not Instagram, first thing is not Facebook, it's not TikTok. It's those things that I want to get done that were very important from the night before, right? So I'm planning my day and I'm writing it down. Highly productive people all have some type of version of this, where they are intentional about their time, because as we've established, time is one of the most important things. That's what we want to get back and maximize throughout the entirety of our lives. So we have scheduled events, we have tasks that we want to get done, important reminders, important calls, messages that we need to send out, emails that we need to write. These are all things that are written down. They're not left to chance. If it's important and it needs to get done to move the needle forward, write it down. Remember, we're not relying on our brains to remember anything. We can consider, just like how you wouldn't take the plane if it was 70% a failure rate, it's the same thing. You wouldn't rely on your brain if you realize that your brain was not meant for memory. It's not meant for memory. It's meant for information processing and creativity. Nothing else in the world can do that like our human brain. So that's the first thing. Highly productive people write it down. Relying on the brain for storage is a self-defeating strategy. Instead, we use the brain for what it's best at. The next thing that highly productive people do is something called time blocking. Time blocking is actually something that I learned from Elon Musk because he does it so effectively. However, I've been doing time blocking for many, many years. I just perfected it when Elon Musk talked about it. Here's how Elon Musk's schedule looks like. What he does is that he has half an hour chunks, 40 minutes, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour and a half, 90 minutes, 2 hours, 45 minutes, 35 minutes, and his days go like that. What happens during those time blocks? He is focused on one thing. That is the essence of that. He is focused on one thing for the entire duration of that time block. So of course, Elon Musk, he'll probably be focused, for example, on some type of rocket science for his SpaceX company, then he focuses on supply chain in Tesla, then he focuses on marketing, whatever he's focused on. How my time blocking would look is, for example, for half an hour I'm making calls. For the next 90 minutes I'm creating content. For the next 2 hours I'm recording this course for you, this freedom challenge for you. That's what that looks like, and I'm not distracted by anything else. So then here we have time blocking. Let's just get this out of the way right now. The idea of time blocking is that you're not doing anything else. And what we're essentially saying is that multitasking is useless. Physically, we're going to clear this up, right? Because this is good. Physically, your brain and no one's brain can multitask. What actually happens when you're attempting to do something like 2 tasks at the same time is that your brain is switching between 2 tasks, but it's not doing things at the same moment in time, because your brain can only do one thing at a time, physically. This is proven. So then, here's why there's a downside to attempting task switching. Not multitasking, because we can't do that, but here's the downside to task switching. It's 2 things, right? For one, the first thing takes longer. So let's say I was recording here and I were to check my phone. This then would then take longer because I'm not focused here. And the second thing is that flow state, when your brain gets into creative mode and you are totally in tune, which is something that's going on right now, you don't get yourself into flow state because you take time it takes time for you to give attention, for you to then seep into flow state where you are totally in tune with the present moment. So every time that you switch tasks, you are preventing yourself from being most creative and you're taking more time. You're losing twice. Why would you do that? Of course, where highly productive people don't do that, and so no longer will you know that you understand. Because I want you to learn faster so that we can get on with the Freedom Challenge and you can also learn how to make your financial freedom possible faster. I'm also going to say one more thing here. There's something called residual attention. Now, I talked about this in my first book, and it was a really wonderful concept once I understood it, but I want to introduce it here to you, just so that you understand where that comes from a little bit more. Residual attention is defined as this. It is the attention given to a distraction even after it is no longer directly distracting you. So here's what the research shows. If you take your phone, right, while you are trying to learn something, and the book was written in the context of the classroom, but it applies to everything. You take your phone, you respond to a text message. Let's say the text message takes 30 seconds, less than 30 seconds, right? No problem, no big deal. Research has shown that to get back to 100% focus on the first task, it takes you 2 minutes, 5 minutes, or sometimes even up to 15 minutes to get back to the level of concentration that you had before you checked your phone. Just think about that. 30 seconds has now cost you 5 minutes of total focus. Total focus. That's how damaging being distracted is. Being distracted is extremely detrimental to your productivity, which is why highly productive people understand that it is damaging to check your phone every 10 minutes. If you're going to talk about a time block, you want to do time blocks in short sprints. Notice I didn't say jogs, I didn't say walks. Time blocks occur in short sprints. So that's maybe 30 minutes of focus maximum effort, 90 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Usually it starts, to get diminishing returns if you go below half an hour, and it starts to get diminishing returns if you go above 2 hours, right there above. But if you can sprint for 40 minutes, 90 minutes towards one goal and just do one thing, that is what a time block looks like, and it's very effective. And then you can imagine if you do a time block in one area, for example, something mathematical or making calls, then you can do something creative next, and then you can do something like recording next, and you can keep going in time blocks. Just like using different areas of your body, you can use different areas of your brain without getting tired. I hope you caught that. The essence of time blocks is that you go towards sprints. I hope that is clear. Let's move on to the third thing that highly productive people do. This is good so far. So far, just to recap, we've covered time blocks and we've also covered writing things down. These are very important things that I practice myself. So let's go into the third thing that highly productive people do. Learn from the source. Here's what learning from the source looks like. If I want to learn about credit, which I have, and I've unlocked a lot of credit, and perhaps we'll get to talk about credit later on in this challenge. If I want to learn about credit and I have unlocked hundreds of thousands of dollars of credit funding for my business and for my company and for people around me, then I want to go to someone who has unlocked $1 million in business funding, in credit funding from banks, because they have done it already, and I will save time and energy and pain by going to them. And I learn from them. Whether it's paid, whether it's free, you learn from the experts who have done it already. The thing that you want to learn it from the experts who have done it already, and listen to nobody else. So, what do highly productive people do to put this into practice? So, what we have to understand is that most general information is available on the internet, right? If I want to learn about credit, I could find it on YouTube. But at 10% of information that you can only earn by some inside information, by going through it yourself, by discovering something that no one thought was possible, by reading the terms and conditions, something that you have to really work for, that 10%, that's what separates everybody else from the experts. And if you can pay to get that 10%, through courses, masterminds, ebooks, etc., you will be so much more brilliant than everybody else. You will get more exposure, you'll be able to talk a lot more freely, and you'll have a wider repertoire from which to draw from when you are conducting classes and talking to other people. That 10% of information is the most valuable, but you can get 90% of information for free. And even that 90% of information, which most people don't have, would already make you an expert. And that's the brilliant thing about information. 90% of the information you can find for absolutely free. Here's the thing. Most experts have free content. Most of them have a lot of free content. I have a lot of free content. On my Instagram, on my TikTok, on my YouTube, there is a lot of free content that if you never wanted to buy from me, never spend $1 with me, you didn't have to. But there is free content there that can still make you a lot of money. And I'm hoping that you use the free content, and then by the time you get to me, you have so many valuable questions and insight that we can actually work together, that all that stuff that you've learned, we can actually put it into practice now, and I can help you to implement it. That is why experts produce free content. It's to make sure that the people who come into the paid sphere are prepared and primed and ready for action. So that it makes the system work even better. But for you, you get to benefit because you get so much information for free. So then, highly productive people find experts. So then, how do you look for these experts? We said it already. You need to find a mentor who has already achieved the success for 10 years or more, or at least before the pandemic, right? Because you want to see them go through hard times and make it out before the recession. Someone who has been doing it for 2 years, I'm sorry, I wouldn't consider them an expert, no matter how much money that they're making. So you want to go through all of their free courses, their YouTube, their case studies, their webinars, etc. And then you want to approach them about, hey, how do I learn an extra 10% from you by buying it from you? Is there a way that I can buy more information from you that other people don't have? So what does this do? Again, it saves you time, it saves you pain, and that extra 10% will make you more than perhaps that 90% will. That is why the 10% is being paid for, because it's an investment into yourself. I hope people caught that. So, here's the thing. When you are looking for a mentor, it is the field that you are looking for that you need to find the expert in. If you're a content creator and you need to find out how to become a content creator with 1 million views, then you need to find someone who does 1 million views consistently. But if you are looking for how to get paid as a content creator, that may not be the same thing, right? Well, exactly what you are looking for them to teach you, that's what they need to be doing. Because even though someone may be hitting 1 million views, that doesn't mean they're making a lot of money from hitting 1 million views. For example, I can't teach people how to get to $1 million a year because I haven't done it yet. But perhaps I'll have I'll be able to talk about it soon. But I can teach people how to make enough money to retire before 30 and travel the world because I've done that. And most people would consider that to be successful. And I have done that. So then I can teach people how to do that, which is exactly what we are talking about here. Right? Once I get to 10 million, I'll teach you how to get to 1 million. I'll teach you how to get to 10 million. Once I get to 100 million, then I'll talk about that. But I can talk about what I've done, and I can show you how to unlock hundreds of thousands of dollars of credit, how to start businesses, how to run them remotely, how to use marketing, how to generate leads, etc. Those are things that I can talk about because I have done it already. So let's move on. So far, we've covered why you need to write things down, why you need to get into time blocks, and why it is so important to find experts. But there's one technique that I wanted to show you just before we wrap this up, which is super important, and I think it's going to change the game for other people when you are trying to learn things fast. This technique, I talked about in my first book, and here I want to bring it back to you again. So, it's a cheat code. Here, you want to write things down, but here you don't want to type, you want to write with a pen on a physical paper for this technique. For this technique, you want to write on a physical paper. And whatever you are trying to learn, I want you to write it down as if you are trying to teach it to someone who is in the 12th grade. Simple language, as simple as you can put it. And you're going to teach it to someone on a piece of paper so that you can't press enter on your keyboard. You're going to teach it to someone as if you are trying to explain to someone who is 6 years old. Simple language. If at any point that you stutter, then you need to go back and fill that knowledge. You can't stutter at all. It needs to be absolutely flawless. Because if you stutter, then you don't know it correctly. You don't know it fully. You want to be able to understand it in as simple terms as possible. Then once you understand it, if you stutter, go back, fill the gap. Then come back, fill the gap, and then explain it again. Once you understand it, then you really know that thing, and then you can move on to the next topic. I can talk about my business. So I am in Airbnb real estate, right? So then here is my explanation of my business in as simple terms as possible in less than 30 seconds. What you have to do is convince a landlord, if you're talking about Airbnb arbitrage, and we have both ownership and arbitrage, convince a landlord to let you use their property for Airbnb. Put it in the contract so you have it in writing. Then once you agree on the terms, negotiate the first month off or negotiate some type of concession so that you can start on profit. Then you want to go and get furniture for as cheaply as possible. I put it on a business credit card, no problem. Or you can get furniture for free, no problem. Then what you want to do is put that property, take great pictures, make sure the great pictures are up front, take a really nice cover photo, make sure when the guest comes in they have a really great experience, get those 5-star reviews from those first 3 guests, give them everything that they need, and then your business will take off. That's my business in less than 30 seconds. That's what that looks like to understand something very, very clearly. So then if you can do that for yourself, then you are off to a great start. I don't want to beat a dead horse because we do have homework and I want you to use this technique in your homework. So there's 2 options, there are 2 items for your homework today. The first is I want you to begin using the 3 productivity hacks that HPP use, highly productive people. That's writing things down, using time blocks, and then seeking expert advice. You have to go out and find the experts. I already talked about recasting your social media. I would do that for 6 months, I would do that for a year. I've done it permanently, but if you can just do it for the next 14 days, the next week here, follow the experts that you want to learn about, the people who go viral, and if you want to go viral, follow them. If you want to learn about ATMs, follow them. If you want to learn about Airbnb, follow them. Search, follow them, like their stuff. The algorithm will give you more information. Then the second thing is you need to choose one new skill that you want to learn. And I want to use the new technique that we just learned about, which is that you find the easiest possible way to explain it on a physical sheet of paper. If you stutter at anything, go and fill that gap, come back, explain it again, and then you've totally learned it. Do that tonight with any one new skill that you're trying to learn. Write it down, fill the gap, come back, explain it again. Then I want you to see how you remember it in the morning. Do that, and I promise you will have a rude awakening on how much better your learning capacity is than you thought it was. I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. I'm really having fun talking about this freedom challenge, going through this with you. I see you tomorrow. Always remember, freedom seekers, that you are one decision away. Take care.